Welcome. For those of you who have not heard of Klaria, Klaria is a pain company. And a pain company that is focused on making sure that severe patients actually receive a reliable pain relief and a rapid pain relief. The company itself is based on this. It's extremely small, extremely compact dosage form, and it attaches to the inside of the patient's mouth. It's taken very easily. That's it. No need for swallowing. The drug is absorbed across the oral mucosa. We'll talk about that a little bit and some of the advantages. So let's talk about Klaria as a company. Essentially, we need to improve the lives of severe pain patients. And so we're focused on exploiting essentially what's material science to advance the way medicines are actually given. How can I say this? My background is actually 25 years in pharmaceutical research and development. I actually spent a good number of years at Pfizer and a fairly large number of years at AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is where I actually met Frédéric Humanet, who invented this way of formulating medicines. And I think it was a combination of the two of us that led to the buildup of Klaria. The idea behind Klaria actually started while I was still at AstraZeneca. One of the things that you actually don't want to be involved in as a pharmaceutical scientist is failure. And you can see actually, here am I talking about the years and years of pharmaceutical failure and the reasons why. So it isn't that much fun to be the first author on the first chapter of a book about how the pharmaceutical industry is failing and why. But the lessons from this chapter in this book, which I doubt will be a New York Times bestseller, but the lessons are, first, make sure you know what you're doing as far as the science goes. But the second is actually keep the dose administration as simple as possible. What we see is a lot of clinical trials failing because the patient-to-patient variation of actual exposure to the medicine is too high. And so you actually don't get the efficacy that you need. The second lesson from this is still around the patient. Medicines don't work if patients don't take them. It shouldn't be in a book, it should be common sense, but compliance is a huge issue. And so for Klaria, focusing on migraine patients in particular, compliance is an issue. And so we design that compliance into all of our products. Talk a little bit about how Klaria was formed. We actually started the idea, as I said, back when 2012, when I was still at AstraZeneca. We met Frédéric, looked at the sodium alginates as a polymer or film-forming polymer. Frédéric had filed the patents around it, so the intellectual property was pretty strong. We took in the first round of funding in 2015. 2016, we ran our first trial, actually 9 months after the IPO, which I don't know if it's a record, but it's pretty fast. And 2017, 2.5 years after forming the company, 2 years after forming the company, we have entered our first out-licensing agreement from one of our products. The reason I'm standing here in front of you today is that product actually, 514, is from our severe cancer pain portfolio. And it's again against overdosing of cancer medications. I'll explain how this works, 514, and a little bit around the license agreement with Purdue. There's not a lot I can say about the product, and because those, of course, are contained in the license agreement. But I can say that it was a big step for us. And for us, 2.5-year-old company, to be able to advance clinical trials for our first candidate, 119, to secure all the IP around it, and to be able to out-license our first product within a couple, 3 years. It's not bad. So what's so wonderful about this? Well, the first thing is, and it's not on this slide, but this is one of the most sticky things I think I've ever encountered. It looks like a dry piece of paper. But as soon as you put it in your mouth, it sticks wherever you put it. And big companies like Purdue, we within AstraZeneca, we have the capacity to look at all drug delivery technologies. And Purdue chose this one because it's unique, truly unique. It's derived from brown algae off the Norway coast. The polymer itself is nothing particularly special. It's the IP that we possess actually is around how you treat it and how you make it into this dry film. The alginate itself, the polymer, is approved for both drug and food use worldwide. If you ate some artificial yogurt this morning, it's probably in your yogurt. And most importantly, the base technology is protected. And in addition, our IP is also protected around each product. So you saw probably on Sunday, if you're watching us, we released a press release about the base technology patent being strengthened here in Europe. But also, if you've been watching us, you see us progressing each product through these individual product-specific patents. So our IP position is quite strong. I showed you the film. Essentially, it goes from this to this. This is the secret sauce. This is what we do. The films we develop are designed for rapid effect. You saw extremely simple administration. And I think one of the most important parts, and we'll come to that a little bit later, particularly in the case of opioid overdose, is it's extremely compact. You can imagine a situation where you need this everywhere. And if you have a nasal spray or an injector kit, they're huge. This is the package with the film in it. This is all there is. In an ambulance situation, an acute situation at the home, this is what you need. We load the film with the active pharmaceutical ingredient. Sorry for using acronyms here, but API is active pharmaceutical ingredient. The drug is actually absorbed directly across the oral mucosa. You have a lot of mucosal membranes in your body, your nose, your mouth, your intestines. They're roughly all constructed in the same manner. So those things which are dosed intranasally or orally can be absorbed. Many of them can be absorbed across the oral mucosa as well. And we in Sweden, of course, are very familiar with snus. We use it a lot here. Not me, but a lot of people do. So we know that nicotine can be absorbed up here. Klaria's films, actually, if you look at this issue of compliance and user-friendliness, this is an extremely important part, particularly in our migraine portfolio. And what we're trying to do is remove all of the barriers that patients see in taking a medication. And that includes making sure that you have a rapid onset of action of the medication, but also that you yourself, a person in severe pain, actually are not burdened by your medication and the way you have to give it. Injections are not popular. Nasal sprays, particularly with migraine patients, are not particularly popular either. Inhalation is a little bit easier. And what we're trying to do is rank up here with these as far as a rapid onset of action, but to be the easiest administration form and compete with these, particularly for substances like we'll talk about a little later, naloxone against opiate overdose. essentially we're competing with nasal sprays and injections. But we also try to profile ourselves as much faster than tablets. And our first migraine project, 119, actually has shown that we do have a faster and more reliable uptake. Production of the film is also an advantage for us, that our cost of goods are actually quite low. For those of you who know about paper, the paper and plastic industry, this machine actually looks quite familiar. This is a standard coating process, and this is what we use to manufacture the large scale. So the cost of goods, the end cost to the patient, and the margins on our products are actually significantly larger than those, potentially significantly larger, than those who are manufacturing bulky products like nasal sprays, pre-filled syringes, simply because this is so easy. It's such a standard process. The film solution essentially is dried. Dried from a suspension of the polymer. It's coated out here, dried along this line, and rolled up into a roll. That roll is then used to produce the doses. It's no more complicated than that. The other simple thing is our development model. It's using all generic substances within Klaria thus far. We do formulation testing, we do some pilot clinical studies to find the right dose, and we run the clinical trials for registration. Most of those clinical trials are what you call bioequivalents, which can take as few as 12 patients. It goes extremely quickly, relatively speaking. Klaria's focus areas, as I've mentioned, essentially we started the company to serve severe pain patients, particularly migraine patients who couldn't take a nasal spray or didn't want to take a nasal spray, and those migraine patients who actually had concomitant nausea and vomiting. You can imagine a migraine patient taking a tablet and then vomiting. Now they have a migraine and they have anxiety about whether or not the tablet actually was still there. It's an impossible situation, and they don't need that. This market is large, and what we've done is our first product actually has reformulated the most popular drug in this space. I won't talk that much more about it because we're focusing on opiates today. Sumatriptan, it's our most advanced project, and this is the size of the market, about $4 billion per year. Breakthrough cancer pain, we have some very promising projects here. And our first project actually within breakthrough cancer pain has actually grown into opiate overdose, naloxone. So let's talk about this. Market size of about $1 billion per year. This isn't our estimate. It isn't our collaboration partner's estimate. This is actually the estimate from the makers of the nasal spray that's leading the market at the moment. $1 billion and upwards. Why do we need this in the first place? Well, here are a few numbers, and you can see them in the papers. If you watch this develop, not only in the U.S. but even here in Sweden. In the U.S., roughly 55 to 65 plus thousand people per year are dying. That's an Airbus a day. One of the reasons underlying this is this number. I just want you to look at this number for a second. 650,000 prescriptions for opiate-containing medicines every day in the U.S. It's hard to believe, but that's what's happening. This is for a reason. There are a lot of pain patients out there, and they are underserved. And one of the ways that physicians solve their problems is actually prescribing quite strong medications to them. So this number is what it is, but it's led to a certain percentage of patients becoming addicted. Effective, extremely effective medicines, but they do carry an addiction risk. One of the issues with this number is the progress of these patients to illicit opiate use. So once your prescription ends, if you're addicted, you basically turn to something else. This is what happened to Prince, Tom Petty. Essentially, these are overdoses, accidental overdoses. This is what the film is designed to address. Make sure that everyone who thinks they need one, and perhaps a lot of people who don't think they need one, have a set of these in their pocket. Naloxone, I just wanted to discuss what it is. It is one of the only antidotes for opiate overdose. At the moment, it's given as a nasal spray or as an injection. Essentially, the patient wakes up extremely quickly. Opiates in general depress your breathing centers, so essentially you stop breathing. But your heart is still beating. So distribution of the drug still happens. Naloxone essentially kicks the opiate off the proper receptors in the brain that are depressing breathing. The thing is, in order to save lives, naloxone has to get in, and it has to get in quickly. It's one of the reasons why it's given as nasal spray or an injection now. So as I'd mentioned earlier, in the naloxone space with 514, what we're really competing with are injectables, which carry a significant needle stick risk. They also have a bit of a price problem. There's a very nice auto-injector for naloxone out there. I think the minimum price I've seen for that auto-injector is about $2,000 per dose. The average price that I've seen online is actually around $6,000 per dose, $5,000 to $6,000. The nasal sprays are a little bit cheaper, but not much. What you find are a lot of government agencies, a lot of local communities actually spending their entire emergency response budgets in the first quarter of the year on naloxone. It's too expensive. But it has to be. These are expensive preparations. Not only are they expensive preparations, but they're also difficult preparations to have on hand. Because the markets demand two things. One is that patients actually who are prescribed an opiate-containing preparation actually should be co-prescribed a naloxone. Why not give the antidote if there's an overdose risk? There's no reason. So part of our market share should be co-prescription, these 650,000 prescriptions that are written every day. The other, which is probably equally as large or larger, is that there should be a set of these in every fire truck, taxi, police car, abuse ward, and even in emergency vehicles like tow trucks. And unfortunately in school buses as well. But these are vehicles. And if you look at the previous slide, those are solutions. One of the problems with solutions is that they freeze. This doesn't freeze. It's the same no matter what the temperature is. So the burden on users and the rescuers of overdose patients are actually lower. So I'll just finish off with just mentioning a few things about our license agreement with Purdue, just to make sure that we're as clear as we possibly can. Essentially, Klaria gives a license for the naloxone film to Purdue Canada. with whom we co-develop the product. Purdue Canada actually has taken a global license, so they have the rights to license further to Purdue US and to Mundipharma. So that's the way we've written the contract. We wrote it that way so that Klaria would have access to the global market. So every patient who needs it should be able to get it. Where does the money come from? Well, the money comes from all three: Purdue Canada, Purdue US, and Mundi. The structure of the agreement is more or less the value statement of Klaria as well. So this is a good model for actually how we would like to out-license our products and how we have thus far done it. Essentially, Purdue is paying Klaria to co-develop 514. When the license is activated, when we reach the R&D milestones and the sales start, it's a normal royalty agreement. And the interesting part of this agreement is the supply part. Since this is a new thing, and since it's difficult for big companies actually to start up these kinds of specialty manufacturing capacities, we actually manufacture it. And hopefully we can make a few margins on that supply as well. So we manufacture the film, and we sell that film back to Purdue. And they distribute it. And actually, as I said, this is kind of the value proposition for all of our products in our portfolio. So I just want to summarize. I think we have a very strong patent strategy, and the technology itself lends itself very well to specialized IP protection. I'm not going to say it's dead cheap to make, but it's extremely cost efficient to make this. And has clear convenience advantages. All three of our present focus areas within Klaria, migraine, cancer pain, and now opiate overdose, very large potential for growth. And these unique products actually, they make their own markets, usually. And finally, as a company, we've demonstrated we can do clinical trials, we can develop medicines, but also that we can out-license them, we can sell them, we can actually make money. So I'll stop there.